This is the People's Parliament, a program designed for you to express your views, especially on matters concerning leadership at the state and that of the nation Nigeria. Each time you install a leader and the feedback is people centered governance, you will realize that your vote was worth it. 2027 has presented you with another time to be in a vantage point. Oh, yes. And go for leaders with high ethical standards, leaders with political capacity to strengthen institutions, ensure fiscal responsibility, and deliver inclusive policy driven governance. And of course, this is to say to you, welcome once again to the People's Parliament. My name is Victoria Johnson. Call me the house leader. With me is my core anchor, Rita Inung. She is serving as Madam Clerk. And of course, before I leave the mic for her to say something, I would love to also introduce our guests to you in the house. And he's no other, of course, a very familiar person whom you've been hearing his voice, okay, analyzing, deliberating on the way forward for our great nation, Nigeria. I'm talking about no other person than Mr. Obong Marvel. I hope I didn't. Welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, so good to have you. Okay, so I have my core anchor in the house. She would love to also great parliamentarians today. Welcome, Rita.
Good morning, House Leader. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Okay, now we have a very interesting update to bring your way this morning. Okay, you know that there's never a time we lack things to do. There's never a time that we actually say, no, we're running out of information in our plate just to dish out for your best of interest. Okay, now this one says, our administration will talk with terrorists, criminals to end insecurity, says Kwang Koso. You can imagine this. Now, you know that Raibu Musa Kwang Koso, a running mate to Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Nigeria Democratic Congress, NDC, okay, is really talking about how he's going to collaboratively with Peter Obi handle government, agencies, government policies in Nigeria, maybe better than what we are having today. And he went ahead to say that their administration will dialogue with terrorists and criminals to end the nation's insecurity in Nigeria. He's saying that Nigeria has been battling with insurgency since 2009, when Boko Haram began launching attacks in the country's northeast. Now, speaking on Monday in an interview, he says that communities battling insecurity possesses critical intelligence about those behind violent attacks. And of course, he said a whole lot of things here, which I would love to quote him, but because of time, we may not be able to squeeze that in. But of course, he went ahead to also say that many residents are unwilling to share such information with security agencies because they do not have confidence in them. And of course, Peter Obi had as well said in June that he would negotiate with bandits and other violent groups if they are genuinely willing to embrace peace. The former governor of Anambra said his administration would prioritize national unity and engage all groups willing to abandon violence and become part of, the country's rebuilding process. Okay, now somebody will want to ask a question this morning. How will this help the Nigerian state when it has to do with insecurity? Okay, now the big question also will be, could this be considered the right way to tackle or ease insecurity completely from the society, okay, as we have it today? Now, You will agree with me that since 2009, okay, just as he said, Nigeria has suffered so much when it has to do with insurgency, from bandits to Boko Haram and ISWAP, okay, to headsmen, mostly targeting the peaceful farming of some Nigerians and different terrorist groups in Nigeria. Now, if the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you know, and tries to adapt this particular policy and says let us embrace peace, let's have a one-on-one dialogue with this armed men, let us ask them what is really your problem. Or perhaps when Peter Obi, okay, and Kwankoso, or let me say if they actually win at the polls, or any other, okay, any other presidency, that is if they win, adapt this policy on having a dialogue with terrorists. This means you are actually, don't forget, negotiating with them to embrace peace, and you will definitely meet their needs. Now, the question is, do you, as a Nigerian, think that this is okay? Or do you think it will show weakness on the part of our leaders on not deploying adequate methods, to tackle insecurity from the system of governance in Nigeria? Now, recall with me that in 2010, the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, had a dialogue with militants and said, come out, surrender your arms, and of course, you will receive rehabilitation and reintegration. And I mean, that these former militants, then they were called militants, were always attacking our oil facilities in the Niger Delta region. And of course, the former president said to them, this is time to embrace peace. An initiative, and of course, something that was actually, should I say, something that was actually incubated by the former president, Adua. And when Goodluck Ebele Jonathan came in 2010, he said, it is time for you to embrace peace, and then we will definitely meet your needs. Come and tell us what the problem is. And then the militants came out in their numbers and surrendered their arms. And I mean, they received rehabilitation, they received reintegration, and so many other things. They got so much of, space and opportunity in terms of entrepreneurial development of their personal selves. There were different jobs set aside for them, scholarships, what have you. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, then President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, even went ahead to give them stipends, a monthly stipends of 65,000 naira, in order for them to use that every month, okay, to take care of themselves. And this was based on an agreement. And do not also forget that there is a difference between militant and bandit, okay? In the course of this journey, we will definitely strike out all of this to your better understanding. But now the question is this morning, if at the end of the day, the presidency, whoever embraces the body of the presidency, be it in the nearest future, okay, or be it now comes with, with a policy that, okay, let us embrace peace. Don't forget that in today's federal, government, we had already, tried to bring in rehabilitation and reintegration. And then we just woke up and said, no way, we will not do this. Why? Because if we go ahead to do this, these criminals, these bandits, this Boko Haram and terrorists, headsmen, what have you, will actually feel that we are being submerged by their influence. And they may actually think that our, security agencies are weak. And that is why we are actually bringing them out and saying, let us embrace this, let us embrace rehabilitation and reintegration. And then they went ahead to say, do not wait for other. Shoot, okay? Do not wait for other, all right? And this is exactly what happened. So now the question is, be it as it may right now, that even at that, we're having different happenings, occurrences when it has to do with insecurity issues in Nigeria. In the months of June and July, we've had a great number of insecurity issues, people being kidnapped almost on a daily basis, okay? And then we were actually, okay, from Oyo State, the pupils and the teachers being abducted to Kogi State, okay, from Kogi State to, Borno State. From Borno State, even the one that just happened just yesterday, or would you say the day before yesterday, in Ondo State, about 2 persons. Now, we are using our security agencies on a daily. They've deployed different methods, and this is still ongoing. Would you say that in the nearest future, if Nigerian government decides to say, please let us try our best and do rehabilitation and reintegration, let us ask bandits and different terrorist groups in Nigeria of what exactly their issue is, do you think that it will actually make Nigeria, in terms of insecurity, to be a country that we are looking out for today? Okay, I would love to start with my guest this morning, Mr. Marvel, our very able analyst in the house. And of course, you know that he's been doing a very good job when it has to do with analyzing different Nigerian problems. And we hope and believe that one day, definitely, the voice of nature will, okay, hearken to all of our pleas. Now, let me put a question across to you, Mr. Marvel. You have seen and have heard what's, the running mate of Peter Obi, Kwankwaso, is saying. Now, if we say that we may actually, now we are seeing this as one of those things they may write in their manifesto, or maybe just to buy the hearts of Nigerians. But to a greater extent, to some Nigerians, he may be making sense. So do we one day, okay, think that if we try to adopt this policy to say, let us negotiate with bandits, let us negotiate with terrorists in Nigeria, do you think is a better idea, or will it in any way show weakness in the path of governance at the federal level? What is your take on this?
Yeah, you see, there is no one way to discuss insecurity in Nigeria. And of course, I read through what Kwakwaso is suggesting, or is thinking that he would implement if they win the 2027 election. And of course, we are expecting that. Talked about manifesto. We wish they can come up with a comprehensive manifesto regarding what they really want to do. But because insecurity is the most difficult challenge that we are faced with today in Nigeria, it is very, very important for all the presidential candidates or all the political parties to speak to it, to speak about insecurity. And in speaking about insecurity, of course, every Nigerian will want to know, what solution are you bringing to the table? And of course, if you listen to Kwakwaso, and is just looking at one aspect of it. And of course, we normally talk about it that the communities in which this insecurity is prevalent, that those communities, they know who are the criminals, that they can point hand at the criminal element. And of course, he also highlighted the challenge of people being afraid to report those individuals to the security agencies for, obvious fears of these security agencies also betraying them. And of course, there could also be other repercussions that is checking them against this report. But speaking about him talking about insecurity as if it's all about terrorism and banditry, you see, when you are looking for solution to insecurity, you need to understand that we have people they call bandits, and of course we still argue whether they are truly bandits or other they should be named differently. And of course you hear people talk about terrorism or terrorists, and others argue no, it's not terrorism, it is a Hadas farmers clash, and all sort of political definitions. Now you cannot use that one approach to address kidnapping, for example, that has turned to an economic activity in Nigeria, then you cannot also use that approach to address armed robbery that is as a result of poverty. You cannot just also use that approach to discuss about farmers-herders clashes. You see, we need to look at the reasons behind each of these insecurity challenges for us to be able to provide solutions. So I would have expected a presidential, vice presidential candidate, as it were, to speak to each of these and talk about it comprehensively. So if he just narrows it to one element of people knowing the criminals in that community, I don't think every insecurity community, they know who the armed robbers are. I don't think every community where kidnapping takes place that they know who they are. So if you are addressing it, look at it through the root cause. And when you take it from the root cause, you would be able to understand the solution you should prefer. So if you don't even understand the problem, how can you speak about the solution to that problem? So you see, when you were discussing, you talked about the militants, and I'm happy you differentiated between militants and bandits or terrorists. Militants are different from armed robbery, for example. So if a government of a time provides solution for militancy, which was, we all knew the reason for militancy, and they said, if you even classify them as criminal elements, you know that if you engage them, like you talked about the skill acquisition for them, that would to a large extent solve the problem. So in discussing insecurity in Nigeria, we need to look at it in terms of what the economic factors, the socio-economic factors, what it has contributed to this insecurity. So I would have expected a vice presidential candidate to speak about it from the understanding of the root causes of this insecurity problem that we are having in the country. So if you are talking about the times of the Boko Haram that was very high, then you talk about ISIS, you know where to come up with. So when you are talking about discussing with them, you are making it sound so simple. It is not simple, it is complex. It is a very complex problem. That's why when we talked about the genocide in Nigeria, people began to argue that there is no genocide in Nigeria. But it was quite confusing that a lot of people felt this is genocide. The others said, no, this is not genocide. Because we know that if you say genocide, it means a particular people that are killing the other set of people. So we know how we interact in Nigeria. We know how we intermarry. We know how we relate with ourselves in terms of our different religious ideologies in Nigeria. So when you look at it from outside, it may appear as if there is, you may not even be able to interpret it very well when you see some of these crises, like worship centers being burnt, worship centers being attacked. Then you begin to attribute it to one side. But if you are able to analyze it deeply, to know the root causes, then it will be better. That is why we always propose that we talk about the kinetic approach of government, that they should find a way to balance it with the non-kinetic approach. If you are putting your socio-economic systems well, if you are offering, if you reduce unemployment, if you make you look at the ecosystem, the socio-economic ecosystem, and know what you should put in place, and put those things in place. You know how to address our deficiencies in our educational systems. You know how to address your deficiencies in the health systems. Then you may just be able to think about what solutions you would give.
We will be having so much of conversation with Mr. Marvel, our analyst, but for now we're going to move over to the phone lines, and of course if you want to join the conversation, it's 0806 804 5443 0806 804 5443. That is the number for you to join the conversation. While I was talking, I saw that the phone line was buzzing. And of course, right now we give you an opportunity to call in. You know that when we bring in topics, debating topics like this, we'll definitely, ask you that what is your own suggestion? Are you in or out for it? Okay, and a lot of persons will also, have the mindset that if this happens in Nigeria, I mean, a young boy or a young girl can just sit down and wake up and say, okay, since they are rehabilitating bandits, criminals, maybe let me just look for something, okay, and do against the law. Maybe one day I will also be given an opportunity. Maybe from there, jobs can be provided for me, and then my needs will be met. So you can imagine that this is, two sides. It has so much of advantage and disadvantages. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the People's Parliament. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, I want to believe that the weather is not affecting our calls. I don't know, you were just on the line, but I could barely hear what you were saying. I couldn't even hear you at all. Okay, so please do well to call in, and of course, we will definitely try to listen to what you have to bring on the table. Do not forget that this is actually set for you, for us to discuss matters of interest that will definitely be of great benefit for a common Nigerian tomorrow. Before we actually take another call, Mr. Marvel, now you, in your own opinion, you were trying to say that, from what I could hear you say, you were saying that it would have been more elaborate, what Kwankwaso was saying, so that he is actually coming out from the angle of insecurity. We have different sectors in Nigeria. In terms of economy, you've seen how much of downtime we're having in terms of economy in Nigeria. Our health facilities, most of it is even dilapidated, okay? And I mean, so many other, sectors, okay, that could better the life of a common Nigerian on the street. So are you saying that he actually limited it to only insecurity?
He limited it to only the approach of negotiations.
Okay.
He is delving and concentrating more on negotiating with these criminal elements.
Okay.
And that's why I asked the questions. Is he going to negotiate with the armed robbers? Is he going to negotiate with the kidnappers? Who are the kidnappers? Where do you find the kidnappers?
Okay.
And how are you going to identify them? So it makes it simple, because we know that we hear the terrorists, that they are members of a community, and they
Mr.
interact
Malva,
with those
please
communities.
just hold your thoughts. Hello, good morning to you. Hello, good morning to you, parliamentarian. Hello, good morning. Hello. I don't know what's going on today, but I just hope that we can squeeze in, okay, one or two calls.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, parliamentarian.
Yeah, my name is Moses. I'm calling from Ukem.
Good to have you.
Yeah, Rita, I want to contribute on this issue of how did you take Kwankwaso or Peter to expose his secret of how to arrest this insecurity? Why the present government is banned? He will not do so until when he comes into the system, before he will do his mind. You understand? And now I want to say, I'm still praying that God should place a president that will be at least at the age of 50, 60 years, not an old people that may not even understand what to do. Nigeria is not a family business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, for your submission. Okay. Now, when it has to do with age, Mr. Marvel, even before I interrupted you or before the call, all right, let's still take more calls, please. Hello. Good morning.
Madam. Good morning, Madam Speaker. My name is Godwin.
Good to have you. Welcome.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I'm put mouth for what my brother Peter did talk about insecurity in Nigeria and everything where they talk on. See, Madam Speaker, say this party is game. And the people must find talk when you go talk for your own progression of your own political levels. So that I will not see, because now remember enough when Atiku campaign, Even if someone Jonathan comes he said this Mubandi, they go negotiate with them, they go solve the Jonathan enter. We go enter mass killers. They kill. The fact about two go enter this one. For I go enter, he say insecurity go end. They see the kill. We do not know for this to move they see the kill. This is a strategic of politics. I want to be a share because anything where somebody sleep and wake up. Now what you can talk, if you like, we follow. If you know like, we go down listen, use our ears, find what you go do.
Okay.
Now what you mean, I say, nobody want to put for that issue. Nobody go feel something like that, except God. Nobody God. So if you make Nigeria better, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Day. This particular caller is always so emotional when he wants to submit. Okay, his own contribution. All right, Mr. Marvel, I was asking you something, okay, in the area of insecurity. If you actually feel that, Kwankwaso actually tried, he narrowed it to only insecurity, he would have bring in a lot of more other, sectors that bothers Nigeria. Okay, so please, you go ahead.
Yeah, before I comment on that, you see, the first caller that made a call about the candidates for the election. See, we are moving into the elections. We need to know what each of these people bring to the table. You cannot just hide what you have and think that the people will vote for you. If you have a solution, discuss that. So the candidates, the political parties are supposed to discuss those solutions openly and let us judge, let Nigerians judge whether they will be able to perform better than the incumbent government.
Okay, all right.
And that should give them a way.
Okay, all right, thank you so much there. The last caller that actually called in, or I think he was the first caller, actually also talked about the fact that when we want to bring in another government in terms of the federal, we should always consider the age. He should be within the range of 50 years old. But, does it really have to do with age when it has to do with good governance? Well, this and many more you're going to be having from the People's Parliament today. So at about now, we would love to go and pay some bills, and then we return. The People's Parliament continues, and the next voice we will be hearing will be that of Mr. Speaker himself. Stay with us.
Locked in core values. Planet 101.1 FM, Uyo.
Hallelujah, Hosanna. Praise the Lord. Joy to the world. Our Lord has come. The earth received her King. King Jesus must be celebrated every day because he isn't a seasonal king. He is King of kings and Lord of lords, the one and only landlord. Obong Yang Yisong, the only creator. It is written, if any man love not the Lord Jesus my Christ, let him be anathema, cursed. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 22. He is God forever. He controls all creation. Arise, let us adore him, worship him in spirit and in truth from now. Then life more abundant is yours forever. Happy new life. Shalom. Akemini Ubong Basi Abraham. Prophetic voice of redemption. To God be the glory.
The world has moved from celebration of certificates to impact and ideas. At Danny Joy International Schools, we are determined to raise critical thinkers, world leaders, and change agents. We are equipped with leading-edge facilities with determination to nurture a total child in an environment where a child is free to grow and explore with our advanced chemistry, biology, physics, ICT hub, music hub, sporting facilities, and much more. Admission is ongoing for boarding secondary students. We are located along Waniba Road after Ibom Hotel and Golf Resorts, Ifyayong, Uruan, Akwa Ibom State. For more inquiries, call 0810-364-9178 or 0808-824-8176. Danny Joy International Schools. Honesty in learning is our legacy.
The Financial Services Regulation Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, in collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, wishes to draw the attention of the public to the activities of illegal financial operators, IFOs, which threaten public trust and the stability of the Nigerian financial system. The general public is hereby advised to refrain from dealing with unlicensed financial operators who deceive individuals with unrealistically high investment returns. Verify the licensing status of such schemes on this website: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng, www.fsrcc.gov.ng. To report any suspicions of illicit financial activities, call CBN 0817-665-7060, SEC 0209-462-1168, 0916-772-3240. Announcer, FSRCC.
My brother, I hear say Lafarge don't change name.
Yes now. Lafarge Africa PLC don't transform. Come become HBM Nigeria PLC. The name don't change, but now still the same Obong cement and other building solutions company. We help build Third Mainland Bridge, National Assembly Complex, First and Second Niger Bridge them, Cocoa House, National Theatre, plus plenty HTRM construction for this we country since 1960.
HBM Nigeria, formerly Lafarge.
HBM Nigeria PLC, formerly Lafarge Africa PLC.
When pain knock your door, when headache show in face, M&B paracetamol day for you. Yeah. When pain won't spoil your day, body day pepper you one kind. M&B paracetamol day for you. That's why from school to office, oh, from market to workshop, Niger people trust them and be paracetamol. You get you M&B paracetamol. They summer pain fast, fast. They summer pain fast, fast. You get you everybody they use M&B paracetamol day for you.
M&B paracetamol, the red one. Now for you and your family. Next time pain showing more face, knock them down with M&B paracetamol. It get why. M&B paracetamol go give you quick relief one time.
If your symptoms not clear after 2 days, go see doctor.
Finally, I am here at Furiji Royal World. Oh goodness, look at that interior decor. It's just so beautiful. And I have to tell a friend, for your interior and exterior decorations, get them from Furiji Royal World. This is a one-stop shopping complex for your home. They sell all your home and office furnishing equipment such as artificial flowers and vases, artificial grass carpets, vinyl flooring, wall panels, fluted panels, chairs, also top quality accessories, kitchen utensils and more. Furiji Royal World is located at number 90 Obimo Street beside Kilimanjaro, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Call them on the phone number 0813-733-5834. Furiji Royal World.
Mr. President, Madam Speaker.
The People's Parliament, where the people speak and the government listens.
The president, before he took over power in 2023, he told us, if I cannot give you electricity in 4 years, don't vote me for the second term.
Oran today has given me your ticket for a second term. And that is how I'm going from one constituency to the other to collect the tickets.
Sometimes when we hear government, we fear, we run and go inside the building because they are government. So we don't want to run again.
If you have an assembly member that is not performing, call for a recall.
That is why I always disagree, Mr. President, for just to give this money to state government to invest. So there was no need to do all this. They won't do anything with this money.
Now, do you know that to build a whole people home, each local government chairman can deliver that? How much is a local government chairman receiving now?
Join us every weekday from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. The People's Parliament. Live and exclusive to Planet 101.1 FM, Uyo.
Hello, good morning, Nigerians, good morning, Akwa, and good morning, parliamentarian. It's another exciting day for us to be back and talk about interesting topical issues in Nigeria, especially in the world of politics, policies, leadership, and governance. As I often say, when it has to do with governance, the most important outlook in a democracy, it's all about the people, how everything is impacting the people and the policies. Are they in favor of the people or for the gains of the politicians? And so this morning in People's Parliament, it will be a holistic conversation around key topical issues. I will touch a bit of events happening in Nigeria in the power sector and also look at some of the budgeting issues taking place in Nigeria. In recent times, it's been such a struggle for Nigeria from budget paddling, and we've seen the one-term agency that took place with Adeyemi, and there have been so many others, but it's going to be a holistic conversation this morning. Well, in case you're wondering whose voice you're hearing, it's the voice of the Speaker of the House. My name is Blyden, Ukem. I trust you've been having a wonderful morning. I trust the updates were good for you, especially when I look at how the likes of Kwankwaso and Peter will be handling insecurity in the country. Well, previous conversation is centered around negotiation with bandits and terrorists. If that comes to play, is it a repeat of what we've seen before? Well, I'm not alone in the House. I'm alongside parliamentarians who are sitting back and listening and joining the show in the course of the calls. But Mr. Marvel is here with me for company. Good morning, Mr. Marvel.
Yeah,
what a cool weather we have.
Yeah.
What a cool weather we have. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, I love to say the far right, not the right wing personality in this one, but it has to do with House Leader, Madam Victoria Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Victoria, well, I think we're counting the days when it has to do with this tit-a-tat we're having, when it has to do with the People's Parliament. You and I, the energy is getting even higher. Higher. Quite exciting about it anyway.
Wow, thank you so much.
All right, let's get to the thick of the conversation then, when it has to do with the motions for the day. The first motion we have today is that Atiku seeks transparency over 8.05 billion naira a Church-Mosque budget. A big question we're asking. The government has to explain what this is all about. Atiku Abubakar is asking many questions, and I think Nigerians are asking similar questions. On a second motion for the day, the federal government of Nigeria launches fresh 729 billion naira power bond after debt settlement. We've heard about this debt settlement. A key cue to this would be that of Ibom power plant being indebted about 28 billion naira, the first tranche being paid, second tranche of 15-point-something billion naira left to be paid, and that's why the facility has not been operational for a while. Let's begin with our first motion, shall we? The former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is demanding transparency regarding the federal government's alleged 8.05 billion naira budget for church and mosque project in the 2026 appropriation bill. Ataka reports a public accountability organization analyzed the budget and reported that 1.91 billion naira was allocated to 7 church projects and 6.14 billion naira to 52 mosque projects. Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president and the presidential candidate of ADC party, has said, look, there's lack of transparency in this government. There are unrelated ministries. Why are we doing this when it has to do with budgeting for churches and mosques in that direction? There's a lack of economic timing, especially when citizens are suffering. There's poverty in the land, and we could use that money for other things. And the legal status, according to Atiku Abubakar, highlighting that religious bodies operate as incorporated trustees, and citizens have a constitutional right to know exactly which communities and institutions are receiving public money. I'll go to the discussion then and start with Mr. Marvel. I don't know. Let me start this way. Was it shocking for you when you discovered that within the budget there was a certain amount of money left allotted for churches and mosques in the country, and to what extent, especially amid the circumstances we're having in recent times? Budget paddling has been a problem. In recent times, we've seen a one-term agency in that direction in the budget. Recently, I think 2 days ago, this week in particular, Monday, the Minister of Finance appeared before the Committee of Finance at the Senate. And guess what? The Senate said, you've done the real budget that we have. We've not had funds for it. And recently, also to add to the analysis, the World Bank came out and said, look, in 2025 budget, there were money spent reaching about 8.8 trillion naira that weren't accounted for, allocated in the budget. So we're having the budget with projects that are not funded, and we're having the budget with projects that are not in there, but 8.8 trillion naira has been spent for them. And we're having the budget now with projects you're wondering and agencies you're wondering. Respond to this, Mr. Marvel.
You see, we need to be careful at this time when we are analyzing political statements, because the aspirants would come up with different propaganda to try to put themselves good. But that's not to say that our system is very transparent enough for us to be able to avoid some of these controversies. If you look at the budget process, it's not just a function of the executive arm of government alone. The budget process also involves the legislative arm, and when we understand how the legislative arm is structured, we know it is the people that approves the budget. So the executive prepares, sends a proposal to the people, that is the legislative arm, and they study it and accept whatever the executive, or reject whatever the executive arm may have proposed, and send it back to the executive. The executive sits down, reviews it, agrees or not agree, or whatever the decision they may want to take. We have a department of government known as the Budget Office. They sit down to roll out these things, and we sit down to process them. So whenever issues of budget padding comes up, then we know there is something wrong with the functionality of our system. We know there is something wrong about the processes, and we know there is something wrong with our recruitment system, those that are meant to execute, to implement those budget proposals. So where you find an item in the budget that is not well explained, then it raises doubt in the minds of citizens about how accountable we are as a nation, and or about how transparent we may be as a nation. If we are not transparent, we would not just have the trust of the people about government and proposals and projects. So here we are discussing worship centers being sponsored by government, and the person that is raising this up, that is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar.
That he's complaining about it.
Yes, he's complaining in a halfway at his position as a presidential candidate, a one-time vice president. You don't throw up criticism without the details. Let us know, where are these churches? Or is in the budget? We have not, in the budget there will be a detail. So if you ask the budget office to give you the details of the budget, they will tell you to the village or location of the church or mosque that was to be built or was to be restored or whatever, or these monies were to be spent on. And if there is none, if the budget was vague, you come up and you also tell us. But why would a budget be that vague and gets to the National Assembly and comes out? Now, you would also ask us, that's why I talked about the recruitment system as well. We see a lot happening in this country that an item would be in the budget and comes out from the budget, and people will start, even senators will come and say, oh, we're not aware of this or that. And yet,
can that be true?
The process of legislation is so rigorous that a matter comes, when something comes up to the budget, they even, to this assembly, they even set up a committee to review. And of course, they have access to consultants as well to review. So we have all these very good policies and systems in government. Why do we still have complaints? It's a leadership challenge that we are having in Nigeria, and none of the candidates that are contesting is able to present himself in a manner to show that he is coming to address the problem of Nigeria as we are currently experiencing.
All right, interesting conversation, and I'll look in there. But let me just expand the conversation a bit, especially when it has to do with what Atiku Abubakar said, House Leader. Before you comment on this one, I think, according to Atiku Abubakar, just responding like typical Nigerians, also asking questions, when it came to the fore, it was a report by Tracker, a public accountability organization, who analyzed the budget and reported that 1.91 billion naira was allocated to 7 church projects and 6.14 billion naira to 52 mosque projects. Initially, the Christian body came out and complained and said, it's not fair. Why not give us equal chance in terms of funding? Why are the Muslims having more money in the budget than the Christians? So you begin to wonder what's happening in the country, especially when you realize that the legal status of these bodies are incorporated trustees, and they're not supposed to be ideally in the budget. But let me just give a rundown of the zones. The few that we've seen when it has to do with this allocation is that specific key projects taking place. Zamfara North Solar Project, 1 billion naira via the Energy Commission of Nigeria for solar power in mosques. Bende local government church equipment, 1 billion naira for musical cultural equipment for churches in Abia State, facilitated by the Industrial Arbitration Panel. Al Kurip Mosque, 280 million naira for construction in Oyo State through the Cocoa Research Institute, and Gombe State support 850 million naira for church and mosque construction, as well as aid for religious leaders. And we're talking about Mina and Paco project, 280 million naira for mosque renovation and carpets. Interesting. And a Sefer Mosque project, 210 million naira for a Jumat Mosque school and Imam's residence in Zamfara State. In Bayelsa State, we're talking about Bayelsa East renovation, 50 million naira for a church renovation in Ologochi. Interesting conversation we're having so far. We've not gotten all the details, specifics, but according to different zones, we've heard how the money is being shared across board. I was really hoping when going through the numbers, we could have one in Akwa, but maybe we'll go and visit the church and see. But House Leader, what's your response and what's really happening in this, especially when Atiku Abubakar has to be the one saying we need transparency?
Okay, I will say that first and foremost, Nigerians would definitely see this as, being politic, because it actually has its own interest, in 2027 polls as the president of Nigeria. So we will not see it as though he's saying it with all of his heart, as though he's actually having the best interest of Nigerians at heart. Okay, where were you before now? This has been going on even in the other administration. Why are you coming out now to say it? We also have to be quite careful when we are talking about the government. This is being seen as whether misplaced priority or thereabouts. We also have to, deploy some measures of carefulness, because when you're talking about the government,
in what way?
Yes, because now we are saying that in the nation's constitution there's some section in the constitution that is saying the government should not adopt a particular religion, or maybe try to give out certain funds to religious organizations or maybe infrastructures in the state. This should actually be done by religious bodies and organizations in the country. Well, we should know that as far as nature is concerned, as far as God is concerned, there's no way you would definitely have your budget for different sectors, for health, for economy, for education, for security, and then you exclude religion. It's not really appropriate. That's what I'm trying to say right now. Because when we are saying that should only be left for Christian organization in the country, we're actually saying we've excluded God indirectly out of the very budget that we have, which he's supposed to come in first. I'm not trying to sound religious here. Yes, because he is saying he's spending so much on religious matters. I mean, we have other things. Now, this is the same Atiku that will, I mean, he has his own education base. How many Nigerian students has he given scholarship? For them to try, for them to, to fly to the next, to the next position in life. We are talking about a common man in the street. We are talking about trying to make one's life better than you met the person. He is always at the age of attacking the government, all because he is citing the presidency, all because he's looking for that particular seat. Wow. And there's nothing that he will not want to bring down in order for him to have a vantage point to be able to thrive.
House leader, you seem to be for this one. House leader reminds me what they say when a person wants to insult you, they say with all due respect and stuff that way, and then they insult you. House leader started by saying that she doesn't want to sound religious. Indirectly, she's about to be religious.
Not really.
Well, let's look at another law, the Nigerian law. Churches and mosques operate as incorporated trustees. As non-profit organization, the law requires them to maintain transparent accounting records and submit annual returns. And while they are strictly tax exempt on core religious donation, they face increasing government oversight and public accountability mandates. So, Mr. Marvel, let's talk about this one. Many Nigerians don't see it right to be allocating money in terms of budget for churches. How many churches are you going to do? How many places are you going to do? When there are the argument of Atiku Abubakar, whether he's against the president or not, first, he's a Nigerian, and his argument is these funds could be channeled on better things. Nigerians are suffering, there's poverty in the land. Why are you allocating money to churches and mosques?
You've already said it. It's a non-profit organization.
Yes.
And is a non-governmental organization.
Absolutely.
So why should government even have interest
Absolutely.
in religious matters? You see, part of the things that is drawing us back as a country is devotion to religion. Devotion in a manner that we get things muddled up and mixed up. So we cannot separate what performance systems should be. So if you're going to adjudge a government, you now would see a government investing money in a non-profit venture, in a non-governmental venture, because you need to please the worshippers of any of those religion. Then the other part to it is, if you make this allocation, like you said, we could even go and inspect those places.
Yes.
Are they truly giving this money to the religious organization?
That's the next conversation.
Because
a pathway to siphon money.
Or a pathway to siphon money, and you use this as a cover. We remember issues during the Second Republic where some states would build a hospital, a general hospital, completed with equipment and furnishings, without, on paper, money taken out, without that hospital being cited. It even happened in the former Cross River State, in the old Cross River State. Now, you see that sometimes in government, if you're not having people that pay attention to details, if you're not carrying out due diligence, you would have a lot of things in paper that are not supposed to be there, and money siphoned out of government. So it is not something that we should allow sentiments in. It's not something that we should think twice about. The issue raised by Atiku Abubakar, if this money had been so allocated, for what purpose? When I heard you talk about solar projects,
yes.
And of course, we have challenges in electricity. So if a particular worship environment needs solar to operate, so when they operate, so how about the small and medium enterprises that also need electricity?
Absolutely.
So
who are contributing to the GDP of the country
for a place that is cannot be classified as any economic activity
absolutely
environment, and leave out those that really need the electricity. So it's abnormally. So when we have discussions like this, we keep questioning our recruitment system and the people that are making this kind of policies.
Well, it would be a good time for parliamentarians to join a conversation. Share your thoughts on this. Are you marveled by, not Mr. Marvel, this one, are you surprised by what's really happening in the country, especially when it has to do with the budgeting of the country? Numbers to join, 0806-804-5443. I repeat, 0806-804-5443. You can also send us a message on WhatsApp at 0902-223-1011. 0902-223-1011. House Leader.
Okay, before parliamentarians begin to call in, I'd like to, chip in something there. Our guest, Mr. Marvel, just said, or some other persons also believe that religious infrastructure is actually going into that as putting in the Nigeria's budget there is more like is a non-profit, profitable organization or kind of a non-profiting organization for the people of Nigerians. But I would like to say that in as much as we know that this is religious organizations, let us also look at the fact that, okay, if you invest in religious matters like building churches and mosques, let me just stick to churches, okay? Now, this will provide welfare, education, and of course, charity work for people.
Now, what about schools?
See, yes, I'm coming there. We've seen lots of churches. I don't want to mention their names. We've seen lots of these clergymen, their own universities, their own churches. We've seen so much of things that they have done. Now, we will see that some of the clergymen will even call out their members and say, come in and get some funds, and then try and promote your business or promote yourself in order for you to have a good life tomorrow. And we also see that some of these clergymen will go as far as giving scholarship to some of their members. And this is the same organization that we are actually looking at as a non-profiting organization. So I want to say this morning that it goes a long way to add credence to the life of a common Nigerian. I mean, if you have a church and your pastor says, okay, I want to better your life. We've seen these cases.
House Leader, I know you're going to make the point. Let me interrupt your thought. The question would be, why send the money to churches to educate people, send people to school, when you can actually do direct scholarship to the people? The question would be, why try to educate people through the churches when you can build schools? A question would be, why try to give scholarship when the government can do that through a government parastatals and means? Why try to feed people in church when the government can directly feed people? They don't have to pass through the church. The other question Nigerians would ask would be, so many pastors have collected so much money from individuals who are giving offerings and tithes, and the pastors have enriched themselves. They build schools that citizens cannot attend. Tell me one of the schools that has been built by some of these churches that a common man can pay the school fees.
Well, I like to say to that effect that, I mean, I would like to say that no, it's not as I'm lacking what to say. No, I will not say that. For you to say, Mr. Speaker, that why is the presidency, why is it passing through the church? I would like to say that for you to have an opportunity to be given this, for instance, if you're doing empowerment, okay, an empowerment is an empowerment, irrespective of the corners it's actually coming out from.
Right.
If you're saying you will build schools and then invest in education directly, fine. If you say you want to pass it through the church, it's also okay. But
right.
At the end of the day, we are still looking at the same direction. The people have received. Okay.
We'll come back to you. Good morning, parliamentarian.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. In the house and then the analyst. This is calling from.
Good morning.
Welcome.
All right, go ahead, okay.
For the fact that Atiku Abubakar is contesting election does not stop him being in Nigeria. He's in Nigeria. He has to say his mind. After all, this president that is our president, our beloved president, President Bola Tinubu, he was one of the persons that was criticizing Jonathan government. Every day of his life. So people have the right to criticize government when something is not being doing the right way it's supposed to be. It is not Atiku right. It's World Bank that is talking about it. And this government reminds me of World Bank for a long since they came into power. The World Bank advised to float Naira, and they did it. without they telling us the reason why they want to do it. Now the world man is saying they are doing that what they do is wrong. There's nothing wrong about us that to categorize go back for AI dispute. So in terms of the churches, if let me tell you something. This church is helping Nigerians. So you know how many employment jobs are created in Nigeria? There's so many schools employ teachers. If most of these schools we are seeing today, most of the important schools in this nation, I can't count because this is A. Or I can't count them on A here. But if you check it, their phone, you see that they have employed thousands of teachers, graduates, cooks, security. Some churches have hospitals, doctors. What about if you remove church from all this employment from it? Church has been helping Nigerians. So I know church that is feeding Nigeria, their members, both members, non-members, every Saturday. They run to hundreds of millions that nobody hear about it. If government will give, if this state government will give just a bag of rice, everybody will hear. I'm talking about on a day I can give you their number every Saturday. They are on to hundreds of millions.
All right.
So we should not be church is really helping us. So
okay,
that's
thank
my
you.
take this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Massive perspective we're having.
You see, I just want to clarify and put us in the right.
Oh, okay.
We're not talking about functionality of a church.
Yes.
We are not also. You see, there is a way economic systems operate. You see, charity organizations, they have their advantage.
Yes.
They ameliorate. In fact, for countries that are passing through economic challenges, the charity organizations come in to help. And those help is just poverty alleviation program. They are different from intentionally and deliberately promoting your economic systems.
Basically, socialist system.
Yes. So what we are saying here is about what we introduced into our budget that could help our economy grow. Different from the other organizations. So when you go to church to donate money, when the small businesses are suffering in the country, it's a misplaced priority. It's a misplaced priority because those small businesses that you would have had maybe revolving loans available to them or whatever program you would have done. In fact, provide us with electricity with that money you are giving to those charity organizations. It would give us a better yield than you going to put money in a place that will. What do churches do? They build their church premises, they open schools, they give charity, they help members pay rent. That is not economic generating. It could help the economy, but it does not. It
doesn't sustain.
It does not sustain.
Yes.
It doesn't promote. It doesn't grow an economy. There are basic activities.
It really doesn't fall within the purview of the GDP of a country.
What do you sell? What are you competing? Because the outside world, you see, when we talk about the goods and services produced by a country, there are certain activities you engage in. If we have the time, we'll look at it very closely. There are certain activities you engage yourself in, and you are just going around a circle. You are not growing. So when we talk about growth, what are we doing within the country? For instance, to grow our GDP, like you have mentioned. Those things have to do with how we regulate our financial systems. Those things have to do with how we stimulate the small businesses in the country. Those things have to do with how the fundamental things of building our educational curriculums. So when we are talking about a national budget, the national budget should have aligned with our national planning, if we had any. So if we are talking about a national, it should be purpose-built to achieve something within an economic year. So within that economic year, in the situation Nigeria has found itself today, we should know how to channel our resources right. Atiku Abubakar may come out and criticize where the money is going. And we are here looking at it, even if you put this money in this direction, how is it helping the economic challenges that we are having today, and we are talking about the weaknesses in our budget as well. When we talk about what we suffered in 2025 budget, that you allocate certain amount for capital expenditure and you could not spend that money on the capital expenditure. When we say we are hungry in the country. What is really making us hungry in the country? It is those lapses that we find between these budget issues and the implementation issues. So in a year, somebody will say, I'm coming to spend 1 trillion on a budget, and at the end of the year, he was only able to spend 1 million. It doesn't really add up. So when we see these implementation issues, we discuss it. Our conversation should be focused on those things that would help us grow our economy.
Our conversation should be focused on the things that will help us grow our economy. Well, one last key point around this talking point would be the laundering warning that Atiku Abubakar said. He stated, and I quote, "God is not a laundering machine for public funds," warning the administration against using sacred spaces to cover up questionable public expenditure. And it's basically what we're talking about here. We've seen the tradition, especially under this particular government, whether we'll put it on the executive or we'll put it on the legislature or the budget office, because somehow in recent times, we've really talked about the budget office, especially when it has to do with the one-term agency that we saw in recent times. We've spoken about the World Bank coming out to say, look, under Nigeria's 2025 budget financial year, that Nigeria did not budget for certain activities or projects they executed, while the Senate are coming out to say, look, the things that you budgeted for, you've not given funding for. But Nigeria spends 8.6 trillion naira. No, I think it was 8.8 trillion naira in cumulative total on projects that were not budgeted for. So we're going to a point where, who do we put the blame on? Is it on the executive? Is it on the legislature or the budget office? Because there've been, for example, the one-term agency, definitely from many angles we've looked at the report, it came from the budget office.
You see, Mr. Blyden, what you have raised is a very serious issue. If you look at it, something was budgeted for and another is being implemented.
Yeah.
The legislative arm, they have finished their work by reviewing the budget and putting it out. If the executive arm now introduces something else and went to spend money on what was not budgeted for, that's criminal. And these are things in other climes that would lead to impeachment. So if an executive arm of government is spending money, you see, appropriation is law. So when money is sent to the People's Parliament, the National Assembly, it is meant for approval of the people. Where the people did not approve that money, it means you stole the money, no matter what you did with the money. It means you have committed a crime, a very serious crime. So if government spends out of appropriation, it is illegal. It is a crime. It is something that can lead to impeachment. So the question now is, did it happen at all that we have these items that were not budgeted for and the monies were spent on them? And if it were so, then it should get back to the National Assembly for investigation, and if it is established, then the necessary law should apply. But here we are. It seems that people just make statements on air these days, allegedly, or you just say what you are not very sure about, and we begin to discuss those items. I would really want to be sure that we have items that monies are being spent on that were not budgeted for. Why do we have oversight responsibilities from the National Assembly? So these are things we should be hearing.
Well, regarding that, there should be a response from the presidency, but the presidency came out and said, well, it wasn't a significant difference. And that's basically what the presidency said. It wasn't a significant difference. And it was a report from the World Bank. A report from the World Bank brought chaos. Everyone talked about it. But a response from the presidency, it wasn't what we expected. We expected the presidency to give details and said, oh, this and this and this and this. This was, just as you said, oversight. I said, well, it's not truly true. The body language of a presidency, well, I don't want to go into it anyway. Let's go to our second motion because our guest is standing by regarding that. I know parliamentarians are trying to call, but I think the network is a bit difficult for them. Apologies for that, but quickly, let's go to the second motion. The federal government has launched a 729 billion naira Series 2 power sector bond settle verified legacy debt owed to generation companies, gencos, and gas suppliers. Issuance completes the first phase of the Presidential Power Sector Debt Reduction Program, which aims to inject much needed liquidity into the Nigerian electricity supply industry. Well, we looked at it as at I think when was it now? The period opens October 3rd, 2026 and closes October 14. So another bond are being raised by the federal government here. A debt already settled. The government recently disbursed about 333 billion naira to 8 gencos to cover parts of the outstanding legacy liability. And when we talk about predecessor bond, it follows a successful 501 billion naira bond raised in early 2026, which recently saw its first successful principal and coupon payment in July 2026. Well, a guest joins the conversation this morning, power consultant. He is Engineer Obong Akpabio. Engineer Obong, good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so good to have you. Most often when we talk about the power sector, you are a go-to man. Let's look at a recent happening. Right from, I think, 2025, there are certain gencos that's really struggling, especially when it has to do with a gas supply. They've been indebted through federal government debt. Federal government has not been paying their bills, basically what it is. And these gencos have been indebted. And in recent times, we've seen effort from the federal government to pay these debts. A part of it was the recent debt settled by the government recently disbursed about 333 billion naira to 8 gencos to cover parts of the outstanding legacy liabilities. And we hear another one opens August 3rd, 2026 and closes August 14th, with funding expected August 24th. Let's start by looking at the power sector and how this would impact the power sector.
All right, thank you for being here once again. But I want to say that it is commendable for the federal government to follow through with what they had promised. You know, one thing is to make a promise, another thing is to keep it. So has this gone a long way to the 501 billion promised and the 233 billion released? Has it gone a long way to help generational companies? I would say yes. But has it solved the problem? I would say not yet. Now, remember that the federal government said that between 2015 and 2024, they are owing the gencos about 4 trillion naira. Now, the chairman of the Association of Power Generation Company, Joy Agaji, on her official LinkedIn page, said, no, it's not 4 trillion, it's 6 trillion. Now, for a start, so how do we marry this difference in values of 4 trillion and 6 trillion? Now, also understand that between this period of 2015 and 2024, there have been variation in forex. You know, there have been increase in prices of commodities. Have all these been factored into the amount of money the federal government is saying they are owing the generation company? So this, what they have done is commendable to me. It has gone a long way to provide liquidity to generation companies, but the generation companies is still largely indebted. And we are still trying and struggling to breathe.
Okay, a good perspective there, because the federal government talking about it sounds so interesting. But just stay on the line. Let's hear from Mr. Marvel. What it has to do with this one, he's saying, Engineer Obong is saying, look, this money will go a long way to help, especially when the conversation about gas supply has been a big concern. From your angle, where do we go from here? How does this help? And then, especially when you look at the queue, when the gencos and other companies are saying the debt is 6 trillion naira, but the federal government is saying 4 trillion naira. If actual debt is 6 trillion naira, what happens to 2 trillion naira moving forward? Because now we're looking for investors to also come in, especially amid incessant grid collapse in the country.
I agree with Ubong's position, but you see, the 4 and 6 trillion, you hear the federal government talk about verifying those debts. Then when you also look at the initiative of beginning to make these payments, you could imagine organizations being owed 6 trillion. This is not an investment money. This is money that had already been spent, and they have their responsibility. They are being owed. Now, if the government has done this, it means that the government has begun to address those fundamental issues that adds up to the challenges of the electricity problem that we are having in the country. So that's why you may have heard Ubong say it's highly commendable, because these are foundational issues. By the time you finish, you pay all this up, then you may be able to start building on it, like the federal government is talking about being able to go back to the capital market and all that. But you see, the difference of 2 trillion is quite huge. So when we talk about verification, what are we really talking about? Could this also pose a future challenge when organizations that may have been owed now may stand a chance of losing that money because they have not obtained verification from government? Or is it also true that they are being owed the amount they claim to have been owed? So those are issues that the federal government is right to verify those debts. The people that are demanding this debt, how is it going to affect them? And ultimately, how is it going to affect our electricity production in the country? But that is just a very minute part of the challenges, because we are only discussing about the GenCo debt. How about the transmission? How about the distribution end? So we still got a far way to go, like I heard Ubong. Like we are just starting, but of course it's highly commendable that you are addressing it at the foundational level.
All right. I see a lot of parliamentarians are trying to call into the show, but I can't sustain it. Connection has been so poorly. We'll do well to read your messages and the cost of it. Engineer Obong, let's talk about what next. You've said it's commendable, a far way to go, just like Mr. Marvel has said. What next moving forward in terms of operations, in terms of transmission, in terms of distribution, and put that side by side in moving forward, how all of these can impact the people? Because the people want cheaper electricity tariff, the people want a consistent power for businesses, and on and on and on. What next?
All right. So to me, I would always want to say that the big problem for us is gas availability. Now we have we have 25 thermal power plants in Nigeria. That means the power plants in Nigeria are largely gas dependent. And as far as the power plants in Nigeria are buying gas at dollar rate, then NBET is now paying us in naira. There is going to be a gap. There is the GenCos would always be indebted to the gas company. So there have to be a gas sale purchase agreement that factors in this difference of we buying gas in dollar and receiving our end product from NBET in naira. So what next? First of all, that has to be addressed. There have to be an agreement. The federal government needs to come in. The gas company, they don't have to stay away from the value chain. No, when we talk about the value chain, we not only talk about generation, we talk about transmission, we talk about distribution. But what happens to the gas company? The gas company is a huge part. See, the gas.
All right, a good perspective though. Well, are you still there? Well, our connection has been a difficult situation this morning, but he's really spoken about the gas companies, and we'll see how it pans at the end of it for moving forward. I think it's a conversation we can carry forward for tomorrow. We'll extensively really have it, as you'll talk about nitty-gritty about around the power sector. But when it has to do with this one, let's take a few messages in the course of it. Namti Ita says, please, it's high time the government stop deceiving us on power bond debt settlement rather than solving or doing the right for steady lights and meters provided to them. This illegal estimated billing when there's no power for those bills. So it falls back to earlier conversation we had. Let's see how we narrow it before we close. House Leader, I'll come to you on this one. We're talking about budgeting. Can we budget more in the power sector? Can we ensure that there's gas availability for Gencos? Can we talk about improvement in terms of distribution rather than just sending money to churches and mosques?
That's a little bit hilarious there. Okay, well, I will say first and foremost that is actually welcoming, okay, to see that we are actually thinking to this direction, in as much as we are borrowing so much in recent times when it has to do with, power sector. So, but I will say that we should utilize this opportunity to make, the power state of Nigeria to be, to be worthy of emulation. We've seen other developed countries, we've seen Ghana. Compared to Nigeria, we are quite more, at a vantage point to have the opportunity to have good power supply in Nigeria. But what we are having today is actually, something that is not very okay. So I will just say that it's very okay for the government to look into the area of power, and then in terms of funding, to maintain the fact that, okay, Nigeria can actually attain that height, and then it can be seen that Nigeria will one day be as a nation worthy of emulation from other countries.
All right. Could we say Nigeria will be a nation worthy of emulation from other countries? Mr. Marvel, closing remarks.
What's heavily on my mind is that we have so much deposit of gas in Nigeria, and we are still lamenting about gas. We even import gas.
Yeah.
When we are flaring gas. When we are flaring gas that is causing so much environmental degradation in Nigeria. And we say, so you see, those are fundamental issues that is very important.
Just 1 minute
for us to address.
Good morning, parliamentarian. Good morning. Well, I'm not getting to hear you, but we have to close at this point. Thank you, Mr. Marvel, for being a part of the conversation this morning, and Victoria, and all parliamentarians that have been making effort to reach, despite the connection difficulty. We have to say thank you so much, and bye-bye. My name is Blyden Ukem. Not leader now, the Speaker of the House, but tomorrow is another day. We'll have wholesome conversation even in the power sector. Thank you for being a part of it.